Daniel remained standing on the central platform. The laughter of the council members echoed around him like thunder. They were already losing interest, turning to whisper among themselves about other matters. The human had been dealt with. He was no longer worthy of their attention. "Before I depart," Daniel said, his voice cutting through the noise, "I request permission to send a final transmission to Earth. I must inform my government of the Council's decision." Chancellor Vrexthan waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "Very well. Protocol grants you that courtesy. Use the communication terminal on the eastern wall. Then remove yourself from this station." Daniel bowed his head slightly and turned to walk toward the terminal. His footsteps were slow and measured. He appeared to be a broken man, accepting his fate. The council members watched him with amusement and satisfaction. He had taken exactly 7 steps when Councillor Marthax rose from his seat. "Wait," the Vren commander said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks scraping against metal. "The council has reconsidered." Daniel stopped walking, but did not turn around. Marthax stepped down from his elevated position, his massive armored feet shaking the floor with each step. The other council members watched with interest. Some seemed confused. Others were nodding slowly, as if they had been expecting this. "We have discussed the matter further," Marthax continued, "and we have decided that allowing humanity to keep its faster-than-light technology poses an unacceptable risk to galactic security." Now Daniel turned. His face showed nothing, but his eyes had changed. There was something sharp in them now. Something focused. "What are you saying?" Daniel asked quietly. Marthax smiled, showing rows of needle-sharp teeth. "I am saying that your vessel in orbit will be seized. Its crew will be detained for questioning. Its technology will be dismantled and studied. And you, Ambassador, will remain here as our guest, a gesture of good faith from humanity to the Council." Whispers spread through the chamber. Some council members looked uncomfortable with this turn of events. Ambassador Silvera of the Mindari shifted in her seat, her black eyes narrowing. But no one spoke against the proposal. No one wanted to oppose the Vren. "You are proposing to take hostages?" Daniel said. His voice was still calm, but there was something different in it now, something cold. "I am proposing to secure the peace," Marthax replied. "We must take precautions." The Vren commander raised one clawed hand and made a sharp gesture. From doorways around the chamber, soldiers emerged. They were Vren warriors, 12 of them in total, each standing 8 feet tall and wearing powered armor that hummed with energy. They carried plasma rifles that could burn through steel at 100 meters. The soldiers surrounded Daniel in a perfect circle. Their weapons were pointed at his chest. Any normal human would have been terrified. Any normal human would have surrendered immediately. Daniel Grant was not a normal human. He looked at the soldiers surrounding him. He calculated distances, angles, and reaction times. His enhanced brain processed information faster than any computer on Earth. In the space of 2 heartbeats, he had identified 17 different ways to disable the guards. "Not yet. Councillor Marthax," Daniel said slowly. "Do you understand what you are doing?" Marthax laughed. It was an ugly sound. "I understand perfectly, little human. I am teaching your species its place in the galaxy. You are nothing. You have always been nothing, and now you will learn to bow before your betters." Daniel was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke again, and his voice had changed completely. The tired diplomat was gone. In his place was something harder, something more dangerous. "I was hoping you would be reasonable," Daniel said. "I truly was. I told my superiors that the council might surprise us, that they might choose peace over confrontation." He reached up slowly and touched the collar of his gray suit. Hidden beneath the fabric was a small device, a transmitter connected directly to his nervous system. He pressed it once. "Protocol 7, he said quietly. "Engaged." In orbit above the station, The human vessel Relentless received the transmission. Captain Laura Mitchell was on the bridge when the words came through. She was a woman of 45, with short black hair and eyes the color of iron. She had served in Earth's military for 20 years. She had hoped she would never hear those words. "Captain," Commander Kevin Price said from his station. He was younger than Mitchell, with a face that still held some hope. "Is that what I think it is?" "Yes," Mitchell replied. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking slightly as she gripped the arms of her command chair. "Ambassador Grant has authorized lethal response. All crew to battle stations." The Relentless was not a large ship. It carried only 27 crew members, including the captain. But every single person aboard had been chosen for a specific reason. They were all part of the same program as Daniel Grant. They were all products of the Omega Initiative. "Charge all weapons," Mitchell ordered. "Prepare for emergency extraction, and get me a targeting solution on that station's defensive batteries." "Captain," Price said quietly, "if we do this, there's no going back. The Council will declare war on Earth." Mitchell looked at him. Her eyes were hard. "The Council just tried to take our ambassador hostage. They're planning to steal our technology and trap our people as prisoners. War has already been declared, Kevin. They just don't know it yet." Back in the council chamber, the Vren guards were growing impatient. One of them stepped forward and reached for Daniel's arm. "Come with us, human," the guard said. "Do not make this difficult." Daniel looked at the guard's hand. It was covered in scales, tipped with claws that could tear through flesh like paper. To any observer, it would seem that Daniel had no chance. He was surrounded by 12 heavily armed warriors, each one trained from birth for combat. He was wearing a simple suit with no visible weapons. He was just a middle-aged man with gray hair and tired eyes. The guard's clawed hand closed around Daniel's arm. What happened next took exactly 4 seconds. Daniel's free hand shot forward with a speed that should have been impossible for human muscles. His fingers, reinforced with synthetic bone and artificial tendons, drove through the weak point in the guard's throat armor, like a knife through butter. The guard made a wet choking sound and fell. Before the body hit the ground, Daniel had already taken the fallen guard's plasma rifle. He dropped to one knee, making himself a smaller target, and fired 3 precise shots. 3 guards fell. Smoking holes burned through their chest plates. The remaining guards opened fire. Plasma bolts filled the air, hot enough to vaporize flesh on contact. But Daniel was no longer where he had been standing. He moved between the shots like water flowing around stones, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to see the bolts as if they were moving in slow motion. He fired again and again. Each shot found its target. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates screamed and fled for the exits. Chancellor Vrexthan shouted orders that no one followed. Ambassador Silvera attempted to strike at Daniel with her mind, throwing everything she had against his mental defenses. She broke through the outer walls, she touched his thoughts, and she recoiled in horror. His mind was not human. It was a fortress made of ice and steel. It was a weapon designed for a single purpose. It was the most terrifying thing she had ever encountered. Silvera fell back in her seat, blood dripping from her nose. "What are you?" she whispered. Daniel disabled the last guard with a precise strike to the temple. He stood alone, in the center of the chamber, surrounded by fallen soldiers, his gray suit now stained with alien blood. He looked up at the cowering council members, and for the first time, they saw him for what he truly was. "I am what happens," Daniel said quietly, "when you threaten humanity's children." The council chamber had become a place of terror. 12 Vren guards lay scattered across the marble floor, defeated in less than 10 seconds by a single human. The most powerful beings in the galaxy cowered in their seats, staring at Daniel Grant with new eyes. The contempt was gone, In its place was something they had not felt in centuries: fear. Daniel stood at the center of the chamber, the stolen plasma rifle held loosely in his hands. He was not even breathing hard. The fight had been easy, almost boring. These soldiers had been trained to fight against enemies who followed predictable patterns. They had never faced anything like him. Chancellor Vrexthon was the first to find his voice. "Guards!" he screamed. "More guards! Kill this creature!" Alarms began to wail throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Daniel could hear the sound of armored feet running toward the chamber from multiple directions. Dozens of soldiers, perhaps hundreds, were responding to the alert. He had approximately 3 minutes before they arrived. "Chancellor," Daniel said calmly, "I would advise you to order your forces to stand down. Further violence will only make things worse." Vrexthon laughed, but it was a nervous sound, nothing like his earlier mockery. "You are one human against an army. You cannot possibly survive." "Perhaps not," Daniel agreed, "but you are assuming that I am alone." He reached up and touched his collar transmitter again. "Captain Mitchell, this is Grant. What is the status of our extraction?" Laura Mitchell's voice came through the hidden speaker in Daniel's ear. "Ambassador, we have burned through the station's outer defenses. The Vren fleet is moving to intercept, but they won't reach us for another 12 minutes. We are in position for orbital insertion." Daniel nodded. "Understood. Begin deployment." "Good luck, sir." Counselor Marthax had recovered some of his courage. He stood up from behind his overturned seat, his massive form shaking with rage. "Deployment? What deployment? Your ship is a tiny vessel with barely 30 crew members. What could they possibly do against a station with 10,000 soldiers?" Daniel smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Would you like me to explain?" He set down the plasma rifle and raised his hands, showing that he was no longer armed. The gesture was meant to calm the council members, but it also served another purpose. It showed them that he did not need a weapon to be dangerous. 30 years ago, Daniel began, Earth's governments realized that we were not alone in the universe. We detected signals from distant stars. We intercepted transmissions between alien vessels passing through our solar system. We learned that the galaxy was full of life, and that most of that life was far more advanced than we were. He began to walk slowly around the central platform, his eyes moving across the assembled council members. "We also learned that the galaxy was not a friendly place. We studied your histories. We watched how stronger species treated weaker ones. We saw the Korthani conquer 17 worlds in the Krellin cluster. We witnessed the Vren exterminate an entire civilization for refusing to pay tribute. We understood that when humanity finally made contact with the galactic community, we would be seen as prey." Chancellor Vrexthon shifted uncomfortably in his seat. These were events from long ago, actions that the council preferred to forget. Hearing them spoken aloud by a human was deeply unsettling. "So we prepared," Daniel continued. "We created a program called the Omega Initiative. We asked for volunteers, men and women who were willing to sacrifice their normal lives for the protection of their species. And then we remade them." He stopped walking and faced the council directly. "I was one of the first volunteers. Doctors spent 3 years rebuilding my body from the inside out. My bones were reinforced with synthetic materials stronger than steel. My muscles were enhanced with artificial fibers that can generate 10 times the force of normal human tissue. My nervous system was connected to neural processors that accelerate my reaction time by a factor of 12. Ambassador Silvera was still holding her head, still recovering from her failed psychic attack. "Your mind," she whispered. "I have never encountered anything like it. It was like touching a machine." "In some ways it is," Daniel admitted. "Parts of my brain have been augmented with computer systems. I can process information faster than any natural human. I can suppress pain, fear, and doubt. I can remain calm and focused in situations that would break an ordinary person. He paused and looked directly at Marthax. I also have internal weapon systems, blades hidden in my forearms, projectile launchers in my wrists, chemical injectors that can release a dozen different toxins. My skin has been reinforced with subdermal armor that can stop most small arms fire. I am, in every meaningful sense, a living weapon. The council chamber was absolutely silent. Even the alarms seemed distant now, overwhelmed by the weight of Daniel's words. The 27 crew members aboard my ship are all Omega operatives, Daniel continued. Every single one of them has undergone the same modifications that I have. Some have additional enhancements, specialized for particular combat roles. Our pilot can interface directly with the ship's navigation systems through a neural link. Our medical officer has enhanced senses that allow her to detect injuries invisible to normal eyes. Our security chief can lift nearly 2 tons with her bare hands. Marthax's scales had turned a paler shade. You created an army of monsters. We created protectors, Daniel corrected him. We hoped we would never have to use them. We hoped that the galaxy would give us a chance to prove ourselves through peaceful means. But we knew that hope was not enough. We knew that someday someone would try to hurt us. And we wanted to be ready. He looked up toward the transparent dome of the ceiling. Through it he could see the stars, and among those stars, a tiny point of light that was moving rapidly closer. My team is currently performing an orbital drop, Daniel said calmly. They are falling toward this station from an altitude of 400 kilometers. They will enter the atmosphere in approximately 2 minutes and impact the station 30 seconds after that. Chancellor Vrexthan's 4 eyes went wide. That is impossible. The heat of atmospheric entry would kill them instantly. Our suits are designed for exactly this purpose, Daniel replied. They are made of materials that can withstand temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees. The suits also have built-in maneuvering systems that allow precise targeting during descent. My people can land within a 2-meter radius of any point on this station. The defense batteries, Marthax said desperately. Our automated weapons will destroy them before they reach us. Your automated weapons are designed to target vessels, Daniel said. Ships, shuttles, missiles. They are not calibrated to hit individual human beings falling at terminal velocity. By the time your systems recognize the threat, my people will already be inside. Outside the viewport, the stars were joined by new lights. 27 streaks of fire cut across the darkness, burning trails that marked the descent of Daniel's team. They looked like meteors, beautiful and terrible, falling toward the station with unstoppable momentum. You have a choice to make, Chancellor, Daniel said. You can order your soldiers to stand down and negotiate with us in good faith. Or you can let them fight and watch as my people tear through your station like a storm through paper. Either way, humanity is done being treated as prey. From this moment forward, you will deal with us as equals, or you will not deal with us at all. The council members looked at one another. They looked at the lights falling from the sky. They looked at Daniel Grant, the quiet man in the gray suit, who had just revealed himself to be something out of their worst nightmares. Chancellor Vrexthan opened his mouth to speak. Before he could say a word, the first Omega operative crashed through the viewport. Commander Kevin Price hit the floor like a bomb. The reinforced glass exploded inward, and he rose from the impact crater with smoke rising from his blackened suit. He was tall and broad, with a face that showed no emotion whatsoever. In his hands, he carried a weapon that looked like it had been designed to destroy buildings. He nodded at Daniel. Ambassador, your ride is here. More impacts followed. Nicole Warren dropped through a ventilation shaft, landing silently behind a group of station guards who had just entered the chamber. She disabled all 5 of them in the time it took to draw a breath. Marcus Cole came through a wall, shattering stone and metal with his reinforced body. Each arrival was more impressive than the last. Within 3 minutes, 28 Omega operatives stood in the council chamber. They formed a perfect perimeter around Daniel and the captured council members. Their weapons were raised. Their faces were calm. The rulers of the galaxy found themselves at the mercy of humanity. The council chamber looked like a battlefield. Shattered glass covered the marble floor. Holes gaped in the walls where Omega operatives had made their dramatic entrances. Smoke drifted through the air from damaged power conduits and burning debris. The beautiful meeting place of the galaxy's most powerful species had been transformed into a ruin in less than 5 minutes. Daniel Grant stood at the center of it all, surrounded by his team. 27 enhanced humans formed a protective circle around the council members, their weapons trained on every possible threat. Station guards had gathered at the entrances to the chamber, but none of them dared to enter. They had seen what these humans could do. They had no desire to test their luck. Chancellor Rexthan was breathing heavily, his 4 eyes darting between the armed humans and the shattered viewport. Beyond the broken glass, the void of space was held back only by emergency force fields that had activated automatically. Through that transparent barrier, he could see the burning trails of the Omega operatives' descent, still glowing against the darkness, like scars on the skin of the universe. "This is madness," the Chancellor whispered. "You have declared war on the entire galaxy." "No," Daniel replied calmly. "You declared war on humanity when you tried to take me hostage, when you announced your intention to steal our technology and imprison my crew. We are simply responding to your aggression." Commander Kevin Price stepped forward. His descent suit was still smoking, the heat-resistant material slowly cooling after its journey through the atmosphere. His face was calm, almost bored, as if crashing through a space station's window was something he did every day. "Ambassador, we have secured the main corridor and disabled the station's internal defense grid," he reported. "The Relentless is holding position above us. Captain Mitchell reports that the Vren fleet is still 8 minutes out." "Thank you, Commander," Daniel said. He turned back to the council. "You have 8 minutes to decide how this situation ends." Councillor Marthax pushed himself to his feet. Despite his fear, there was still rage in his eyes. The Vren were a proud species, warriors who had never known defeat. Being humiliated by humans, by these insignificant creatures from an insignificant world, was more than he could bear. "You cannot hold this station," Marthax growled. "When our fleet arrives, they will blast your tiny ship into dust. Then they will storm this chamber and tear every one of you apart." "You are probably right," he admitted. "The Relentless cannot survive against your combined fleet. If it comes to a direct battle, we will lose." Marthax smiled, showing his needle teeth. "Then you have accomplished nothing. You will die here, and humanity will be destroyed for this insult." "Perhaps," Daniel said. "But before the Relentless is destroyed, Captain Mitchell will transmit a complete recording of everything that has happened here to Earth. Every word spoken in this chamber, every action taken by the Council, every threat, every betrayal, every act of aggression against a peaceful diplomatic mission." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Earth's leaders will receive this transmission within hours, and when they do, they will begin preparing for war. Not the small, limited conflict you are imagining. Total war. The kind of war that humanity has been fighting against itself for thousands of years." Ambassador Silvera spoke up from her seat. She had recovered somewhat from her failed psychic assault, though her face was still pale, and her hands were trembling. "You are threatening us with war? Your species does not have the technology to challenge the Council. Your fleet is tiny. Your weapons are primitive." "Today, that is true," Daniel agreed. "But humanity learns quickly. We have studied the technology we captured from alien vessels that entered our solar system. We have reverse-engineered your faster-than-light drives, your weapon systems, your shielding technology. We have made improvements." He gestured to Nicole Warren, who stood nearby with her weapon trained on a group of captured station guards. Specialist Warren, please demonstrate. Nicole raised her free hand. On her wrist was a device that looked like a simple bracelet. She pressed a button, and a beam of energy shot across the chamber. It struck a decorative pillar on the far side of the room, and cut through it like a hot knife through butter. The pillar's top half crashed to the floor, sending up a cloud of dust and debris. That weapon uses principles your scientists have not yet discovered, Daniel said. We developed it in the last 5 years, based on research conducted in complete secrecy. Earth has many such surprises waiting for anyone who threatens us. Chancellor Vrexthon was staring at the destroyed pillar with something like disbelief. The Korthani were among the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy. Their weapons were supposed to be unmatched. Yet this human device had done something their own technology could not do. You are bluffing, Vrexthon said, but his voice lacked conviction. I never bluff, Daniel replied. It would be inefficient. He began to walk among the council members, moving between their overturned seats and scattered belongings. The Omega operatives shifted smoothly to maintain their protective formation, their movements perfectly coordinated. Let me explain what will happen if you destroy the Relentless and kill my team, Daniel continued. Earth will receive our final transmission. Within 1 year, they will have constructed a fleet of warships using our most advanced technology. Within 5 years, that fleet will number in the hundreds. Within 10 years, humanity will be ready for conquest. Conquest? Marthax laughed nervously. You expect us to believe that your primitive species could conquer the galaxy? Not the galaxy, Daniel said. Just your worlds. The Korthani home system, the Vren breeding grounds, the Mindari telepathic academies. We will not try to rule the entire galaxy. We will simply destroy everyone who participated in this betrayal. We will burn your civilizations to ash and salt the ground so nothing can grow. And then we will return home and wait for the next species to threaten us. The chamber fell silent. The council members looked at one another, seeing their own fear reflected in each other's eyes. They had lived for so long as the masters of the galaxy that they had forgotten what it felt like to be threatened. They had forgotten what it meant to face an enemy who had nothing to lose. You would murder billions of innocent beings, Silvera whispered. For revenge? Not for revenge, Daniel said. For survival. Humanity has learned a simple lesson over the centuries. If you want peace, you must be willing to wage war so terrible that your enemies will never dare to attack you. We call it deterrence. He stopped walking and faced the council directly. But deterrence only works if you believe we are capable of doing what we threaten. So, let me make our capabilities perfectly clear. He raised his hand and signaled to Marcus Cole, who stood near the chamber's main entrance. Cole was the largest of the Omega operatives, a mountain of muscle and synthetic enhancement, who had once lifted a crashed shuttle off a group of trapped civilians. He nodded at Daniel's signal and turned toward the entrance. Station guards had gathered there, hundreds of them, waiting for an opportunity to retake the chamber. They were heavily armed and deeply angry. They had watched their comrades fall to these human invaders, and they wanted vengeance. Cole walked toward them alone. He was not carrying a weapon. The guards opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked toward Cole's chest, enough firepower to destroy a small vehicle. The bolts struck his body and dispersed against his subdermal armor, leaving scorch marks on his uniform, but doing no damage to the flesh beneath. He reached the first guard and moved. His hands were a blur, faster than the eye could follow. Guards fell left and right, disabled by precise strikes to nerve clusters and pressure points. Within 30 seconds, every soldier in the entrance corridor was on the ground, unconscious or groaning in pain. Cole turned and walked back to his position. He was not even breathing hard. My team can do that all day, Daniel said quietly. We can fight through your entire station and disable every soldier you have. We will not kill unless we have to. But we will not stop until we have achieved our objective. Do you understand what I am telling you? Chancellor Vrextan swallowed hard. His four hands were shaking. What do you want? It was not a friendly expression. I want exactly what I asked for when I arrived, he said. Peace, trade, friendship. I want humanity to be accepted as equals in the galactic community. I want our petition to be approved and our quarantine to be lifted. And if we refuse, then I activate Protocol 8, Daniel said. And trust me, Chancellor, you do not want to know what Protocol 8 involves. The council chamber was quiet. The alarms had been silenced. The station guards had withdrawn from the corridors, ordered to stand down by a terrified Chancellor Vrextan. The Vren fleet, which had been racing toward the station with weapons charged, now held position at a safe distance, waiting for instructions that no one seemed willing to give. Daniel Grant stood at the center of the ruined chamber, surrounded by his team of Omega operatives. He had made his demands clear. Now he waited for an answer. The council members whispered among themselves. Species that had been rivals for millennia now found common ground in their shared fear of humanity. The Korthani, the Vren, the Mindari, and dozens of others looked at the humans standing before them and tried to calculate their odds of survival. They did not like the numbers. Chancellor Vrextan was the first to speak. His voice had lost its arrogance. He sounded tired, almost broken. If we grant your petition, he said slowly, what guarantee do we have that humanity will honor the peace? You have shown us today that your species is capable of terrible violence. How do we know you will not simply use our acceptance to grow stronger, and then turn on us when you are ready? It was a fair question. Daniel had expected it. You do not have any guarantee, he admitted. Trust cannot be demanded. It must be earned, on both sides. He reached down to his hip, where he had placed the plasma rifle he had taken from the first guard. He picked up the weapon slowly, making sure the council could see every movement. Then he ejected the power cell, disabled the firing mechanism, and set the useless weapon on the floor in front of Chancellor Vrextan. This is what I offer, Daniel said. Not a guarantee, but a gesture. Humanity does not want war. We do not want conquest. We want only to take our place among the stars, to trade with other species, to learn from more cultures and share our own. We came here seeking friendship. You responded with threats and betrayal. Yet still, we are willing to try again. Ambassador Silvera leaned forward in her seat. Her black eyes studied Daniel with new interest. She had touched his mind earlier, and the experience had frightened her. But now she was beginning to understand something important about this strange human. You are afraid, she said quietly. All of you. Beneath the modifications and the training and the weapons, you are all deeply afraid. Daniel did not deny it. Yes, we are afraid. Humans have always been afraid. Our world is harsh. Our history is filled with suffering. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and near-extinction events. We know better than most species how easily everything can end. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of council members from a dozen different worlds. That fear is what drives us. It makes us prepare for the worst. It makes us build weapons and train soldiers and develop technologies that can protect us from threats we have not yet imagined. But fear is also what makes us seek connection with others. We know that we are stronger together than we are alone. We know that the universe is too big and too dangerous for any single species to face by itself. Counselor Marthak spoke up. His voice was harsh, but the edge of anger had faded. Pretty words, but words are easy. Your actions today have shown what humanity is truly capable of. Our actions today were a response to your betrayal, Daniel replied firmly. We did not fire the first shot. We did not make the first threat. Every action we took was in defense of ourselves and our crew. If you had honored your own laws and allowed me to depart peacefully, none of this would have happened." He paused, letting that truth settle over the chamber. Humanity is capable of great violence, that is true. But we are also capable of great compassion, great creativity, and great love. We have artists who create works of beauty that bring tears to the eyes of millions. We have scientists who push the boundaries of knowledge simply because they want to understand the universe. We have ordinary people who risk their lives every day to help strangers in need. These things are also part of what we are. Commander Kevin Price stepped forward. He removed his helmet, revealing a face that was surprisingly young, surprisingly gentle. "My grandfather was a farmer," he said. "He spent his whole life growing food to feed people he would never meet. My mother was a teacher. She dedicated herself to helping children learn about the world around them. I became a soldier because I wanted to protect people like them. People who just want to live their lives in peace." Nicole Warren spoke next. "I have a daughter back on Earth. She is 7 years old. She loves to paint pictures and play with her dog. Every decision I make with her face in my mind. I did not become an Omega operative because I enjoy violence. I became one because I want my daughter to grow up in a galaxy where she will be safe." One by one, the Omega operatives shared small pieces of their lives. They spoke of families left behind, of hopes and dreams and fears. They spoke as human beings, not as weapons. And slowly, the atmosphere in the chamber began to change. Ambassador Silvera closed her eyes. She reached out with her mind, not to attack, but to listen. She touched the surface thoughts of the humans around her. And this time, she did not encounter walls of ice and steel. A sunset scene from a porch in rural America. The smell of coffee brewing in a kitchen on a winter morning. The sound of children laughing in a schoolyard. The feeling of holding someone you love. "They are telling the truth," she said softly. "Their words match their thoughts. They truly do want peace." Chancellor Vrextan looked at his fellow council members. He saw doubt on their faces, but also something else, something that might have been hope. "The council will need time to deliberate," he said finally. "This is not a decision that can be made quickly." "I understand," Daniel replied. "But I should warn you that my ship cannot remain in position indefinitely. The Relentless has limited supplies, and my crew has been under significant stress today. We will need an answer within the next 2 hours." Vrextan nodded slowly. "We will discuss the matter and give you our response." The council members gathered in a smaller chamber adjacent to the main hall. Daniel and his team remained in position, weapons lowered but ready. The wait was difficult. Every minute felt like an hour. Finally, the council members returned. Chancellor Vrextan walked to the center of the chamber and faced Daniel directly. "The Galactic Council has reached a decision," he announced. His voice was formal, but there was something different in his tone, something that sounded almost like respect. "Humanity's petition for membership in the galactic community is approved. The quarantine designation will be lifted. Earth will be granted full trading rights and diplomatic recognition. In exchange, humanity will commit to the peaceful principles of the Galactic Accords, and will refrain from acts of aggression against member species." Daniel felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had hoped for this outcome, but he had not truly believed it was possible. For a moment, he allowed himself to feel something he had not felt in a very long time. Joy. "On behalf of Earth, I accept these terms," he said. "Humanity is honored to join the galactic community. We will work to prove ourselves worthy of your trust." Vrextan nodded. Then, to Daniel's surprise, the Chancellor extended one of his 4 hands. "I believe this is a human custom," Vrextan said. "A sign of agreement between equals." Daniel reached out and shook the Chancellor's hand. The gesture was awkward, given the difference in their sizes, but it was genuine. "There is one more thing," Silvera said. She walked forward until she stood directly in front of Daniel. Her black eyes met his, and he saw something there that he did not expect: curiosity. "Your species is remarkable," she said. "You have shown us strength and restraint, violence and compassion. You are more complex than any species I have ever encountered. I believe you will change the galaxy in ways we cannot yet imagine." "For better or worse?" Daniel asked. Silvera smiled. It was a strange expression on her pale face, but it was genuine. "That remains to be seen. But I think I am looking forward to finding out." The Omega operatives lowered their weapons and began to form up for extraction. The Relentless moved into position above the station, ready to receive its crew. As Daniel walked toward the transport pad, he looked back one final time at the council chamber. The rulers of the galaxy sat among the ruins of their meeting hall, surrounded by unconscious guards and scattered debris. They had come into this day believing that humanity was insignificant. They had learned otherwise. Daniel Grant, the quiet man in the gray suit, allowed himself a small smile. He had protected his people and secured their future among the stars. Humanity had arrived. The galaxy would never be the same. As the transport beam carried him back to the ship, Daniel thought about his wife and children waiting for him on Earth. He thought about the billions of humans who would now have the chance to explore the universe. And he thought about the simple truth that had guided him through this impossible day. Hope was worth fighting for, peace was worth bleeding for, and family was worth everything. The stars spread out before him, infinite and beautiful, full of dangers and wonders beyond imagination. Humanity was ready to face them all. The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss, and Daniel Grant stepped onto the polished marble floor of the Galactic Council Station. He was a man of 53 years, with gray hair at his temples and eyes that had seen too much. He wore a simple gray suit, the kind that office workers on Earth might wear to a boring meeting. There was nothing special about him. At least, that was what everyone thought. The council station was the largest structure Daniel had ever seen. It floated in the empty space between 3 star systems, a neutral ground where the most powerful species in the galaxy gathered to make decisions. The main chamber was a massive dome made of transparent crystal, and through it, Daniel could see 1,000 distant stars. The floor was made of white stone that came from a world destroyed long ago. The seats rose in circles around a central platform, and in those seats sat the rulers of the known universe. Daniel walked slowly toward the center of the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the silence. He could feel hundreds of eyes watching him. Some of those eyes were curious. Most were filled with contempt. The Korthani were the first species Daniel noticed. They were tall beings with 4 arms and 4 eyes, their skin the color of dried blood. Their leader, High Chancellor Vrexthan, sat on the highest seat. He looked down at Daniel the way a man might look at an insect crawling across his dinner table. To the left of the Korthani sat the Mindari. They were slender creatures with pale blue skin and no hair. Their eyes were completely black, and they rarely spoke out loud. They preferred to communicate with their minds. Ambassador Silvra was their representative, a female who was said to be able to read the thoughts of any living being within 1,000 meters. On the right side of the chamber sat the Vren. They were the warriors of the galaxy, 8 feet tall, with scales like armor and teeth like needles. Counselor Marthax represented them. He had fought in 17 wars and had never lost. His people believed that strength was the only law that mattered. There were dozens of other species present. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Daniel's mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. But they all had one thing in common. They all believed that humanity was beneath them. Daniel reached the central platform and stopped. He took a deep breath and began to speak. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he said. His voice was calm and steady. "I come before you as a representative of Earth. My people wish to join the galactic community. We seek trade, friendship, and peace." Chancellor Vrexthon made a sound that might have been laughter. It was an ugly noise, like stones grinding together. "Peace," the Chancellor repeated. "The humans speak of peace." Whispers spread through the chamber. Daniel heard words in languages he did not understand, but the tone was clear. They were mocking him. Ambassador Silvera leaned forward in her seat. Her black eyes focused on Daniel, and he felt a strange pressure against his mind. It was like invisible fingers trying to open a locked door. She was attempting to read his thoughts. Daniel had been trained to resist such attacks. He built walls in his mind, thick and strong. He filled his surface thoughts with boring images, paperwork, coffee cups, traffic jams on Earth highways. The Mindari ambassador frowned. She was not finding what she expected. "His mind is difficult," Silvera announced to the council. "He has been trained to resist telepathic contact." "Of course he has," Councillor Marthax growled. "The humans are paranoid creatures. They trust no one, not even each other. They have spent their entire history killing one another over patches of dirt and differences in belief." Daniel did not argue. What the Vren said was true. Humanity had a violent past, but they were trying to change. That was why Daniel was here. "We acknowledge our history," Daniel said. "We do not hide from it, but we have learned from our mistakes. We have united our world. We have put aside our old hatreds. We come to you now not as conquerors, but as students. We wish to learn from the wisdom of elder species." Chancellor Vrexthan rose from his seat. He was even taller than Daniel had expected, nearly 10 feet of muscle and bone wrapped in ceremonial robes of gold and purple. "You wish to learn," the Chancellor said slowly. "What could your species possibly offer in return? Your technology is primitive. Your culture is young. Your world is small and insignificant. What value does humanity have to the Galactic Council?" Daniel had prepared for this question. He had rehearsed his answer 100 times on the long journey from Earth. "We offer perspective," Daniel said. "We offer determination. Humanity has faced extinction many times, ice ages, plagues, wars that nearly destroyed us. Each time we survived. Each time we grew stronger. We are not the oldest species in the galaxy. We are not the most advanced, but we are among the most resilient. That resilience might one day prove useful to the Council." The chamber fell silent. For a moment, Daniel thought his words might have made an impact. Then Chancellor Vrexthan began to laugh again, and other council members joined him. "Resilience," the Chancellor said between laughs. "The insect boasts of its ability to survive being stepped on." Daniel kept his face neutral, but inside, something cold began to form in his chest. He had hoped for better. He had prayed for better. But he had known, deep down, that this was how it would go. The council pretended to deliberate. They spoke in hushed voices, though Daniel knew the decision had been made long before he arrived. After 20 minutes, Chancellor Vrexthon raised one of his 4 hands for silence. "The Council has reached a decision," he announced. "Humanity's petition for membership is denied. Furthermore, Earth will be designated a quarantine world. Your species will be forbidden from traveling beyond your own solar system. Any human vessel found in Council space will be destroyed." Daniel felt the words like physical blows. Quarantine. Isolation. Humanity would be trapped forever, caged like animals, while the rest of the galaxy moved on without them. "May I ask the reason for this decision?" Daniel said quietly. "You may," Vrexthan replied with a cruel smile. "Humanity is too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous. You are a threat to the peace and stability of the galaxy. It is better for everyone if your kind remains contained. Daniel nodded slowly. He had one more question. Is this decision final? Vrextan's smile widened. It is, and you should consider yourself fortunate, human. We are allowing you to return home with your life. That is more mercy than your species deserves. Daniel said nothing. He simply stood there on the platform, surrounded by beings who saw him as nothing more than an animal. They thought they knew what humanity was. They thought they understood the danger. They were wrong. Daniel Grant had not been chosen as ambassador because he was a good diplomat. He had been chosen because of what he was underneath the gray suit and tired eyes. Earth's leaders had hoped for peace. They had prayed that the council would be reasonable, but they had prepared for the alternative. As Daniel stood in silence, he thought about his wife, Susan, and their 2 children back on Earth. He thought about the billions of humans who were counting on him. And he thought about the training he had undergone, the modifications that had been made to his body, and the terrible purpose he had been created to serve. The council members looked at him and saw a defeated man. They saw weakness. They saw prey. They had no idea what they were really looking at.